Hey. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Step Back Tonight. This is... what a start. No transition, no splash screen, nothing. I just went right into it. So, hello, friends. I am Tristan, and this is Step Back Tonight. Step Back Tonight is a weekly Tuesday night show that I do where I hang out with all of you guys, ace some cues. Sometimes I do something else. Sometimes there's a game involved or something. But tonight we're going to keep it easy. We're going to chill out. We're going to hang out together. Have a little bit of a back and forth. And, you know, just relax and talk about stuff. And who knows where we'll go. I can see, let's see who's already in here. Some Random Geek and Sirloin and Comrade Jeb Bush and Argos Panoptes, Only Bro 555. All right, Jiffy Chips. If you, good question. Good thing I want to point out is there anybody new? Is this anyone who this is their first stream? I think that's always a good way to start. If it's your first time, please say hello. And everybody should welcome new people coming to the stream. And then I can get into Argos' question. Thoughts on Edmund Burke? This is the first one. Let me see who this person was. No, okay, yeah. The father of modern conservatism. Well, that's not good. Oh my. A war on one is a war on all of us. All right. I see. Comrade Ace, we haven't seen you here in a while. Jiffy Chips, it's your first stream. Welcome aboard. Awesome. And Logan's in here. Milo. Good to see everyone coming. So, first question I got for the night was from Argos and was on Edmund Burke. Not sure how to say how I feel about Edmund Burke. I mean, all right. I guess there's a couple things. Let me just take some notes real quick about so I don't miss any questions. Then we can get into a little bit about it. So, I don't know if anyone has been... following BreadTube videos, but also first let me just get that freaking grocery bag. Very, very unprofessional there. Yeah, so there was a really great video that came out last week by Innuendo Studios that I think I want to recommend. It was called... Oh boy. What was it called? Let me find it for you real quick. Innuendo Studios. Always a Bigger Fish. Yes. The Always a Bigger Fish video by Innuendo Studios, which sort of shows that the principled moderate idea of a conservative is actually not as applicable as, say, I mean, the guy who runs Innuendo Studios did a lot of work to sort of wrap up a term called a system justifying belief, which is just that the inequalities and cruelties of society are fine. Things are fine. And that, I think the big thing in that video, though, is that the diametrically opposed poles of political discourse are capitalism against democracy, and how a conservative would lean more towards capitalism, while a liberal would lean towards democracy, and that, like, say, a socialist or an anarchist would get rid of capitalism altogether, while like a fascist would get rid of democracy altogether. It's one of those things that feels useful, but also because it feels like a clean category, my first thing as an academic makes me like, I don't know. But it's interesting. And so why am I saying all this in a question about Edmund Burke? Well, Edmund Burke apparently is the father of conservative thought. And in the footnote video for this video, Always a Bigger Fish by Innuendo Studios, I'm going to put a link in the chat so you guys can, if you haven't seen it, you can check it later. Bam. If you guys watch it, there's also a sort of footnote video afterwards that is a great follow-up to it that talks about the intellectual history of the conservative movement and how it comes from people like Edmund Burke. And how it comes from the idea that there is an ideal hierarchy of society and that the goal should be to get rid of things that get in the way of the natural hierarchy. That's like the core of conservative thought. I don't know if I have any thoughts on Edmund Burke specifically because I'm not a person who is, I'm not a philosopher, I'm not a political philosopher. So I haven't really found I haven't really found a lot of need to read old conservative thinkers. On Article 13 passing, though, I don't really have much to say on that, to be honest. I know that that's Article 13. That is that's the European Union's like killing meme ban thing, isn't it? If I remember correctly. That's like the thing I'm thinking. All right. The voice of that friend in Always the Bigger Fish video was my friend Steve Shives. Yes, it is. I definitely could tell that when I was listening to his voice, that it was Steve Shives. I was like, oh, I haven't heard that voice in a while. That's nice. Okay. To burk somebody is to murder them by suffocation without leaving any signs of violence. Ooh, that's gross. So I don't really know much about Article 13. I don't really know much about the European Union's laws. Copyright is bullshit. It always has been. And if it strengthens the rights of rights holders, like, it's a bad thing. Man, I don't know why, but my brain is just not coming to life today. Usually I'm just like on, but for some reason I'm a little lethargic for today. So I'll have to work myself up to it. I have to get my energy up. Okay. Let's move on to the next question. Did you hear about the British Parliament trying to get rid of Theresa May? I know that something happened in Brexit world today, but I don't know what it was. I know the last I heard was there was like a passing of an agreement with the European Union to sort of kick the date of hard Brexit down the road a few more months so that they could finish working out a deal. And I think something got voted in today, but I don't know what it was. Woohooligan Comedy. Hi, Tristan, new subscriber. Well, welcome, Woohooligan Comedy. I am very happy to see you here. Yeah, that's awesome. I always like to see new people coming into the stream. And if you're a new subscriber, then that means you just came. There's so many. If you're new to Step Back, there are so many videos to watch. You've got so much to watch if you feel up to it. So that's awesome. The Parliament took over Brexit. So honestly, like I can't really say too much about what's going on with Parliament in England. I did not follow it today in the news. I was busy doing other things like my job and researching future videos. So I've been busy in that sense. Okay. So if we have some new, some new subscribers here, if anybody has a favorite Step Back video they want to recommend to Whooligan, please do so, because I have my own favorites, and my favorites are typically ones that nobody watched. So obviously I'm a bad barometer of what's a good video. So please, if you have favorites, you should pass them on to Whooligan, because you probably have a better grasp than I do. Let's... found you through the Radical Reviewer video on the new Jim Crow. Oh, that's awesome. Radical Reviewer, you're like the second or third subscriber that I've seen who's come from that Radical Reviewer video. That's awesome. I'm really glad to see that that went well. I'm glad people liked that. My small what's it called? My small contribution to the to that video, because we worked on that for a while, and I read. So this was so for anybody who doesn't know, there's a channel called Radical Reviewer, which is like a channel that reviews videos. It reviews books, like theory leftist books, for YouTube. And the book that we worked on together was The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander, which, for anybody who studies, for anyone who studies humanities or social science or American history, knows that that is a huge thing in huge book. And I got to cover one of the chapters of the book, but also propose a couple ideas on carceral systems and retributive justice versus restorative justice and all sorts of stuff like that. Who we got some favorites? I'm noticing, okay, my favorite is the Step Back on the Weimar Republic. Oh, wait. The George Bush war criminal that hasn't been made yet. All right, we got the birth control video. All right, that's nice. That's a recent one. I like that. Hi, Cesny19. Hi, I literally subscribed 2 minutes ago after watching the Rwandan genocide video. Oh, that's awesome. Well, Cesny, we're actually just talking to the new subscribers and the new people in the chat, trying to pitch people's favorite Step Back videos so that they can recommend new ones. So if you want to watch more, that they are there. The one about the Stonewall riots and trans women leading the charge of LGBTQ. Yeah, that's a pretty cool one. That's the Stonewall riots video. I'm pretty happy with that one. The Iceland video. Oh my, Jeb, that's an old video. That's from like 2016, I think. You have the book, The New Jim Crow. You haven't read it yet. It's a good one. It's a very good one. Just binge all of them. There's like 200 Step Back videos now, so I feel like you should be a little bit, you got to be a little bit selective now. Paris Commune is one of your favorite Step Back videos. That's good. There's a lot of representation of 2019 Step Back videos in here, which is nice. That means that my recent stuff is doing as well as my old stuff. Spanish Civil War video is your favorite, Kane Russell. That is awesome. That's actually the Spanish Civil War video. I found out later that was the first video of mine that Thought Slime saw. And that's when he saw that video, that's when he decided to reach out to me, which I thought was really cool. The Gay 20s video and the Lavender Scare and the AIDS crisis. Yeah, that those like 4 videos I made. I did like a video. I did like a short, like a 4-part series on LGBTQ plus American history. I started with the Gay 20s, and then I followed it up with the Lavender Scare, which was about basically the crackdown on gay, lesbian, trans people working in the government during the Red Scare. Then I did a video on the Stonewall riots, which was one of the kind of big turning points in the gay rights movement in 1920s America. And then I did a video on the AIDS crisis, and so kind of like a quadrilogy, if you will, of a of stuff there. want to let you know that that you and Natalie were my introduction to leftism. Well, Tiggs Futura, I hope that Natalie rubbed off on you a lot more than me, because she knows a lot more about that stuff than I do. She's way more of a philosopher than me. I'm a historian. I just read a lot of books about things that happened. But I'm glad that you were introduced to it. I think that learning about leftism through example rather than theory is an important thing, and that's kind of where Step Back sits. The Nestor Makhno video, Attentat Deficit Disorder, that's a pretty good one. The Nestor Makhno video is another favorite. That's actually, I remember that video very well because the Nestor Makhno video, I finished. So in 2017, I moved from London, Ontario to Toronto, and I remembered the Nestor Makhno video because it was the first video after a long break because of VidCon and because of my comprehensive exams for my PhD and stuff. Or not my those were done, but just that summer was really busy because we were moving. And I remembered that I finished the video and I was getting ready to let it go live when I moved to Toronto. And I remembered that it came out so soon after I had moved that we hadn't even gotten our internet yet. And so I remembered that I had to launch the video and do like the opening stuff from a Starbucks across the street from where I live. And I thought that was really funny. Glitch 42 wants a book list. I should put together a book list. That would be really nice. I'll put that together sometime. I can't do that now, obviously, because that'd be weird. The Who Beat Columbus series for Jiffy Chips, that's a pretty good series. That was done over a period of like 2 years, and a lot of people came into the channel through that. So I'm really happy. You've been around since the Iceland video. Does that mean I can apply for a veterans discount? Yeah, Jeb, if you've been around since I think like when I did the Iceland video, I'm pretty sure I had like less than 10,000 subscribers, and now I'm rounding up to 48. So that's, you've been around for a very long time. Lavender Panthers when? That's a good question. You remember arguing about the nature of violence with me on that one? Oh my, yeah, that's an old one. Cody led me here, and my first video was "What is fascism really?" That's a solid one. That's one that a lot of people seem to like. Kind of old, but the first videos I watched were the Who Discovered America series. Yeah, that's I think they withstood the test of time. That is true, Gadyariv. I agree. It's very different from what Step Back makes today, but I think that it has sort of a classy old charm. Okay. Getting a lot of questions about the So That Happened podcast. We can get into that in a bit. All right, let's answer another question. This is from OnlyBro555. If humanity survives industrial civilization, what would a post-industrial collapse world look like? That's a good question. That's fairly low. That's a fairly it's a gap of imagination there. There's of course the post-industrial like automated industry economy where things are customized and made for the average person, but that doesn't really. I do think that the idea that we can't imagine what an economy looks like in the future with a capitalist model shows that like it's completely wholly unsuited to the future, and that we're going to. I did a talk about this in May of 2017, where capitalism's kind of going through this crisis mode that it kind of goes through every few decades. But this one, it's sort of the final crisis of capitalism. We can imagine the end of the world before the end of capitalism, and so we see either we need to abandon capitalism or go extinct. And most people are pretty, we're at the socialism or barbarism moment, and we never got to. We just need to get there, or we need to decide to let it go. Do I hear a hungry kitty? No, you hear a whiny kitty. That is Romeo. He's being annoying. He's been a lot more noisy lately. I'm not sure what that is about. Senate vote on the Green New Deal failed. Yeah, Comrade Jeb. That's not much of a surprise. I don't think anybody had much of a much hope of that actually getting through. The Green New Deal is not going to go through until the Democrats have all branches of government. I think that's pretty it's pretty solid. The Aztec Day of the Dead video is your favorite? Well, some random geek. That is awesome because not a lot of people watch that video. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I like how there are some Step Back videos that not a lot of people watch that I was a really big fan of that just never got attention. I don't know why it was, because, like, you know, various things, various historical circumstances or, you know, interests didn't line up. Like, for example, one of my favorites, let me see if I can find it for you guys. This one is a video I did about... Okay. This is a video I did about the Girl Scouts that almost nobody watched. But, Professor Frank, welcome. You are never late. Don't you know that the professor is never late? The class, the only people who are late are the people who show up after the professor. That's what I learned. That's my university lesson. So this is my favorite, probably one of my favorite videos that I've made. I think the one I made about Aisha, the youngest wife of Muhammad, and her story is kind of amazing, and I really was proud of that one. But this one with the Girl Scouts is great because almost nobody saw it. It only has 4,000 views, so we're getting close to the point where the video I released yesterday on PewDiePie almost has more views than this video. And this, but this video is really good. It has a cameo from Hbomberguy, like almost like it's just so it's World War II. I don't understand why nobody liked it, but I really loved it, and I loved like the Girl Scouts of America Twitter account like retweeted it. I was like, oh god, this is great. But yeah, it just never really caught on. I guess nobody wants to watch a video about the Girl Scouts, which I think is kind of sad, because the Girl Scouts are kind of an awesome organization. And I got to yeah. So there you go. You should watch. I'll probably, what'll happen is someday, one of the things that I do with my YouTube channel is I'm always tweaking my thumbnails. I'm always doing A/B tests with thumbnails in different videos, see if I can increase the click-through rate. And that one I'll probably end up tweaking the thumbnail and seeing if that increases click-through or something like that. Radical Reviewer, didn't you say that videos that deal with female and other non-white male subjects get much fewer views? That is true. I do get, there's something called the 28% woman tax that I get on my videos, which is when I talk about women or people of color in my videos, 28% of Step Back regular viewers don't show up, which makes me a little sad. Looking at your social blade, it says you will hit 100,000 subs on August 22nd, 2020, 10 days after your 18th birthday. That's awesome, Jeb. Yeah, I think that's an awesome, I'm pretty excited for that, because if that is accurate, if Social Blade is accurate, then that means that I'll be hitting 100,000 subscribers around Labor Day, which I think that's great. I think that's an awesome day to get to 100,000 subscribers. Your video thumbnails are far too busy. Well, Radical Reviewer, you've got a hotline to me, so why don't you just, if you want advice on thumbnails, just hit me up and I'll give you some advice. Just not for a stream, but you can reach out to me later. Yeah, Terry Weaver's. And then they complain about you being left-wing and leave a rude comment. I do find funny that even today, even on like this day, I get random comments from people that are like, I've been a subscriber to you for like 1,000 years, and you know, this video that just came out, is not going to get anywhere. Like this, like I completely lost track of what I was talking about. Yeah, I'm in that brain space. Yeah. So, Oh yeah. So I get comments where it's like, I've been watching your video for years, and this video that you released, this is the one that I realize that you are left-wing SJW cuck. Oftentimes they call me a Jew too, and like now I'm unsubscribing. You know, now 2019, you know, coming up on 4 years since I started Step Back this September. That is when they finally realized that that's when they finally pieced together that I don't agree with their political slant, and that means that my videos are my channel is no longer allowed. Yeah, that's something. Thoughts on credit right now? No deal seems imminent. I honestly don't know much about the Brexit situation. I have avoided it like the plague. I imagine that I don't really know where we're going with that. Gaming with a Goofy Goober. I've been subscribed to you for 5 to 10 minutes, and none of your videos will... You're joking. But are you actually new, Goofy Goober? Are you actually new to the channel? Let me know. I'd be interested to know if you're a new subscriber, because that'd be pretty cool. I've also found... now, I'm kind of... I've talked about this with Thought Slime, too, and I said, one of the things that I'm a little sad about is that the right-wing YouTube sphere, like the Nazis and stuff like that, or like the, you know, the anti-SJW people, they don't, it's not that they don't, like, I mean, they obviously wouldn't like me if they saw my stuff, but they don't know who I am. I'm completely unknown to them. Like, Thought Slime runs a smaller channel than mine, but he gets so much more vitriol and hate than Step Back does. And I don't know why. I even had a selfie of mine. There was a selfie of mine that ended up on Paul Joseph Watson's Twitter account or Facebook page. Let me see if I can find the picture of me. It's one of my favorites. But yeah, I took a picture. I had a I took a picture of myself at the Chicago Museum of Technology and Industry or whatever, and it got put on Paul Joseph Watson's Twitter or Facebook page, and I was just so disappointed that I never ended up with me getting like a deluge of hate. I've only had like a handful of response videos, and they're typically pretty bad. Most of them have been taken down by now. So, like, I don't know. I'm surprised that I have not been more hated than I am. I guess I should consider myself lucky, but it does definitely have to do with the fact that I don't respond to right-wingers. I don't do response videos. That is true. And Thought Slime is... Thought Slime's not binary, which also, you know, they'd like to punch down, so... I am a cishet white dude, which kind of gives me a pass in a lot of places. So, yeah, it could be all of those. Would not be surprised. Let me just, I'm finding something real quick. I'm going to find I'm looking for the picture that Paul Joseph Watson posted. Here. I'm going to show you guys. So I keep this as a, I keep this close to my heart as one of my favorite pictures I ever took of myself. Because it was about American farming, and Paul Joseph Watson put it on because it ended up on I think it ended up on the Donald subreddit or something like that, and that it came out. So Soak it in. That one's a favorite. One of my more proud selfies. Oh yeah, like to just show like the AOC t-shirt, the soy in the background. Oh man. Your videos are more academic opinions, so they would need you to know how to read. Oh yeah. You should get an AOC shirt. Yeah, I'm very happy I have an AOC shirt. They don't know who you are because your channel is focused on history before social justice. You go under the radar for that reason. That's probably true. So Goofy Goober, you are brand new to the channel. Well, I know you missed some of the, if you just came in, the chat, we were just talking about people's favorite Step Back videos to sort of get, because there's a handful of you guys who are new subscribers here, and that's fascinating. I'm really happy that a lot of new people are coming out. That's really good. That's a good sign. So please, yeah, please everybody in the chat, please recommend your favorite Step Back videos so that all these new subscribers know which videos they should be watching. Make me very happy. Yeah. Ooh. Some random Greek. Oh, some random Greek. That's a different Twitter channel. Okay, let's go. Oh, the Brewsters video. Yeah, the whole women being brewers thing. That was a great video about how women were the makers of beer for a long time. How can I be interested in history and not be more libertarian? I am very libertarian. I'm left-wing libertarian. Are you taking down questions? Yes, I am. 255. I'm working on it. I am. I'm just getting caught up in the moment. We're having a good conversation. It's very. I think I'm on low latency, so I get to talk more in real time. I think my delay is a lot smaller than it usually is, which is nice. Witches are good, actually. That was a good year. I think we got like 3 like witches and feminism type videos in a very short amount of time. Because I know that Angie Speaks made one, and Philosophy Tube had one. So like that was awesome. In 9/11 was an inside jib. Yes, I remember that one. My 9/11 truther is probably the #1 source of hate. Kane Russell for the 9/11 as an inside job video. That one gets me more death threats than any other video I've ever made. But I also agree that 9/11 was an inside Jeb. I'm sure Jeb has something to say about that, and probably has a Photoshop meme about that. The Aztec roots of the Day of the Dead, history of the birth control pill, Paris Commune, anarchists in the Spanish Civil War. That's a good spread, and a lot of those are really recent. That's awesome. I'm glad that people are liking recent videos. That makes me happy. All right. Ooh, Spooky S Boneman, which is a great username. 9/11 was an inside jab. You're going to go find some glass and lead. I'll watch this later. Have a great night. See you later at Tentat Deficit Disorder. Thank you for coming out. I appreciate that you are a new subscriber. Have a good one. All right. I don't like conversations. I've never had a conversation in my life. I prefer to just shout questions at people. Oh my. You'd be a good journalist. Okay. Let's all right. I should probably start munging through the questions a little bit so that and while I'm reading, I'll just show you guys this again because I love it so much. Tristan, would you consider yourself a transhumanist? This is from Spooky S Boneman, which I think might be one of my favorite usernames. Hey Tristan, would you consider yourself a transhumanist? Also, who are some cool folks in that community I should check out? I'd ask a history question, but I don't have any. Well, Spooky S Boneman, that is a let's talk about Spooky S Boneman. Question about transhumanism. So I think I am still a transhumanist, but I'm getting less and less optimistic. I think that there's a lot of technological cheerleading that happens in transhumanist circles that I don't see. I I don't see much of a I don't see as being as around the corner. Like I'm not as optimistic about the singularity happening in our lifetimes as say like Ray Kurzweil is. I don't, given how like every time we learn more about the brain, like the fact that we don't know anything about the brain still, we're still really lost as to how it works. The idea that memory uploading is a thing that they think is in the near term future, I don't anticipate to actually be true. I don't think that, like, I do think that general AI and stuff like that are interesting things. I do think that there are less sophisticated artificial intelligence issues that can cause major damage before we have to worry about the future of like a general AI. I think there's a lot. I think that the idea that humans will evolve technologically past what is biologically a human today, I think is, yeah, it's just a matter of time. But I also don't believe that we have, I don't believe that a lot of the technology that we're being promised in transhumanist circles are for the recent or for the near-term future. Like I expect that I'm going to die, that I'm not going to be immortal, that radical life extension is not going to be in my lifetime. Our idea of microbiology is still really hazy, and I don't see us solving all the problems of aging in the next 30, 40 years. I mean, I'd be happy to be surprised, but I don't anticipate it. I'm preparing for a dog ran world. We will reflect on human extinction out of an ANCOM educational centers. All I can think about, Radical Review, when you talk about a dog run world is like Snowball and being like, where are my balls? Like Snowball is my slave name. You can call me Snuffles. And like, yeah, the mech suits and stuff like that. If anyone remembers, that is an episode of Rick and Morty where they make it, the dogs get like intelligence powers and stuff like that. All right. Next up, this one comes from 255 AD. By the way, if you're a new subscriber, a lot of these questions do. Do you think the description of a conservative mindset applies to Cody? I made that observation when I posted the vid in your Discord. Yeah, I mean, the kind of talking about the relationship between Cody and I definitely feels like the relationship that's at the beginning of that video. Honestly, like, Cody and I haven't really, like, talked about, like, in depth about how his political thinking works, to really get into that kind of stuff. The kind of age where it's okay and fun and low stakes to talk about radical politics with people you disagree with was sort of past by the time I met him. And because we like had a bit of an email back and forth in 2015, but then we didn't talk for about like almost 2 years. Just no real reason. We just fell out of touch. And then we met at a party at VidCon in 2017, and sort of that kind of brought us back together, and that's when all this stuff happened. But yeah, he's a lot more right wing than I am, that's for sure. And sometimes that leads to friction, and sometimes that's in public, and that's not super great. But he's a lot younger than me and sees it as sort of lower stakes than I do. But you know, I can't control him. He's still a friendly person, just has a lot of ideas that I really don't get along with, and so it's better to just not talk about it with him, I think. All right, next up, Comrade A says, ¿Puedes hablar español? Sí hablo español un poco, pero no estoy bien, or bueno. See, I'm not that great. I do speak a little bit of Spanish. I studied it for a couple years. It's not as good as my French. And I'm actually going to Mexico soon. Did you live out Innuendo Studios' latest video? Basically, yeah. I am going to Mexico in a couple weeks, and so I'm excited to get some more practice. Because it's one of my favorite things about going to Mexico. That and the alcohol. Glitch 42. Oops. Want to make sure I just didn't miss anything. All right. Have you thought? All right, Glitch 42. Have you ever thought of using Bella Ciao as your intro/outro music as its public use? I've never heard that song before. I've be kind of. Is it good? All right. Keep in mind, like, I'm getting to all the questions. I'm just, slow. I have them all. I write them all down. I just got to answer them all. Sometimes these are faster and sometimes they're slower. So, all right. Argos Panoptes asks, thoughts on determinism and Nietzsche. Is Nietzsche a gateway to fascism? I mean, somebody told me once that so I knew a guy he was at the time, he might still be a philosophy professor. And one of the things he said is that when you do like the overall survey of philosophy, when you get to the 19th century and you cover Friedrich Nietzsche, that there's like, from that point onwards, there's a group of young men who always sort of break off from the class and start becoming progressively more and more assholes as the course moves forward. And Nietzsche starts them. They start turning into jerks. Then when you get to the 1950s and you cover Ayn Rand, then they become even more assholes. And you can see them. They start to like become, they not only start to like sit together, but they always break off, and then they always get more and more like dumb and belligerent as the course nears the end. And I think that's really amusing. All right. Well, Hooligan Comedy, who unfortunately... Oh, wait, no, you're still here. Would love to hear your thoughts on copyright in greater detail. I'm familiar with arguments against crackdowns, but not against copyright in general. More or less that copyright shows that the capitalist idea of property is a social construct, and two, doesn't really make sense when applied to the real world. Possessions as like things that you have and use, that's one thing, but like the ideas are not a scarce resource. They're not food or lodging or anything like that. They are ideas. And in order for it to make sense, capitalism in order for capitalism to make sense, intellectual property has to be a thing, because the government, for capitalism to work, you need a government to use violence to enforce property. If you do not have police to kick homeless people out of homes, you won't have a functioning capitalist economy. Capitalism is built upon tyranny and violence. It's baked into its DNA. And intellectual property being like, intellectual property, it's ideas, it's information. It is infinitely replicable. It is infinitely shareable. There is literally no reason for it to be controlled like a scarce resource. But because we live in a situation in which people need to control intellectual property in order to make money in that field, basically to make a capitalist system work, we have this thing. And all of the laws are like, there's no law about copyright that doesn't sound ridiculous. Like, the thing about culture, ideas and culture, is that they're supposed to be open and disseminated into the public culture, and then, you know, retransmitted and transformed and remixed and all that kind of stuff into other more amazing things. That's like how culture has worked for all of human history until very recently. And then they changed it. They added this thing, and now you can't have things from culture become public domain where people can play with those characters and those ideas until like 70 years after people have died. Or I think in some cases even 90 years. The fact that like the things that are like, I think in like 2021, I want to say, The Great Gatsby finally becomes public domain. And that like the fact that it took that long for the Great Gatsby to become public domain is so sad. Because like The Great Gatsby's already had a massive cultural impact. But like we haven't been able to integrate those things into our culture. The internet has done that a little bit because the internet, as a inherently like anti-authoritarian technological system, it doesn't. It created so much copyright violation that basically it's impossible to even. It's impossible to even manage it anymore, to even like, you know, keep on top of it. They tried to in the 90s. I remember when they tried to guilt people into not downloading MP3s. If you remember when like Napster got sued by Metallica or something, and you know LimeWire, they tried to shut down LimeWire at various points, but like you can't. Like it's just not untenable anymore. And now with these laws like Article 13 or like I think like some other things, like we're showing that this is starting to sort of fall apart, or this is they're starting to crack down in a sort of neoliberal way, which is going to do a lot of damage if they can enforce it, which they really won't be able to. Honestly, like copyright is a thing that only needs to exist, or that that copyright is a thing that can only exist in a capitalist economy. And if you look at it, I cannot think of any way to look at copyright that doesn't sound ridiculous. It doesn't like make no sense. That is trying to put paywalls and limits on the things that have made human culture work forever. And yeah. All right. If humanity survives... All right, we already covered that one. Argos Panoptes, thoughts on balding? Does it make you smarter? All the philosophers I know is bald. I mean, as someone whose hair is actually... It's going, but it's not like... It's not going as much as other people's are, which, you know, that's a nice thing. I don't know. I think that when it comes to balding, it's one of those things where, like, I think the saddest... I honestly don't think it looks that bad. I think the worst thing about balding is the people who try to... the people who try to deny it. I think this is like an old tired phrase. You know, the people who wear toupees, the people who get hair transplants. Like, honestly, if you're going bald, like, you can make it work. I just feel like people should lean into that more. Not to mention, male pattern balding is a sign of too much testosterone. And too much testosterone is really, like, damaging to your body in a whole lot of different ways, including balding. And so that's why maybe it's for the best that maybe it doesn't make you smarter, because if you're someone who goes bald, it means you have a lot of testosterone, which actually means your lifespan's probably going to be a lot shorter on average. Yeah. See you later, Thessel. What happened to the podcast? To So That Happened? I got like a million questions about So That Happened. All right. Trust me, I don't know. I don't know what happened to So That Happened. It stopped for a while because Cody was working on his book. And then the book came out. And then we were like, all right, well, I guess we're going to start it again. And he tried a couple of times, but we just were never available at the same time. And then he just has never asked. I think right now, from the last conversation I had with him, he's working on a sequel to his book. And so I think that's eating up a lot of his time in the same way that the first book did, which makes me think that he kind of replaced... I think that kind of replaced it in a lot of ways. So you can blame... So if you like, what's it called? If you like the Atlantropa protocols or whatever, the Atlantropa Project books, then that's what happened to all the time that would have gone into So That Happened. It went into the Atlantropa books. Have you seen Emperor Tigerstar and Fire of Learning's recent video on Gavin Menzies? No, I haven't. Any of you Cody and Tigerstar's podcast coming back? I already answered that. Alright, 255. I call myself a communist, but what I actually want is a command economy, ideally supervised by super advanced AIs administered by elected, recallable delegates. Does that count as communism? That sounds like a technologically forward-thinking version of Marxism-Leninism. Actually, that's Marxism-Leninism very much, but also the computer-controlled command economy was experimented with. There was something called CyberSyn that was being put forward in Chile up until the under the Allende government until Pinochet basically took over and scrapped the project. And they were going to be CyberSyn was going to be a sort of running the command economy via a sophisticated computer system. And I also remember that near the end of the Soviet Union, there was an attempt to use computers and the early internet to manage a command economy. I don't know where that went. It probably didn't go anywhere because the Soviet Union was kind of a mess in the later years of its life. But my guess is that a command economy could probably function a lot more sophisticated today with the computers we have today. I'd be interested in thinking about what a command economy might look like if you had like a you don't even need like a super advanced AI, just a modern day AI managing who needs stuff and where. And so I'd be kind of curious about that. Yeah, the Project CyberSyn was cool. I feel like that I should probably I'm gonna put that on the release calendar because CyberSyn is a cool thing, and I feel like I should that should be a step back video at some point. Because it's so weird and it's strange and it's so unique, but you know, no one really talks about it that much, so maybe I'll put it on there. I have it. It's on the Idea Informer page. Yeah, I know that. I have a release calendar that I'm working with, and it's just like ever since I slowed down my process now, it's like, crap, like, you know, you think of a few video ideas you want to do, and all of a sudden you're booked all the way until July of 2020. So, you know, all you know is there will always be step back videos coming out, and hopefully they will all be good. There's a lot of ideas that get thrown at me every single day. So if you want me to do a video on a subject, you're going to have to pitch it really, really good. Because because I'm trying to go with I only make one video a month. I'm only going to be making one Step Back video a month in the going forward. So I gotta make good ones. I think this channel was actually recommended to me by YouTube because I watch a lot of history channels. Awesome. This channel introduced Milo Brown to BreadTube. That's so cool. I'm glad that I got somebody to find BreadTube through me and not the other way around. That's cool. All right. Where's the video on communism and Minecraft? All right, OnlyBo555. Thoughts on the Mueller report finally getting Donald Trump? Okay, yeah. So I guess we do have to talk about. That's kind of the thing in the room is that the Mueller report came out, and even though you'll die at some point. Yeah, well, I will die at some point, but there will probably always be. That's when we'll have the AI that can replicate my video making process. We already got deepfakes. Deepfakes just got to get to the point where they can copy my voice and my style of writing, and then I can just have deepfakes make Step Back videos. That's the future of YouTube. Then I can release a new Step Back video every 2 hours. Wouldn't that be great? All right. Tristan Butt will make Step Back for eternity. Yep. All right. Mueller report. Finally getting to Donald Trump. Mueller report. Yeah, so Robert Mueller put forward his Russia investigation. He finished it. He sent the thing. He said, all right, we're done. No more videos. Or no more, wait, get my wires crossed. No more indictments. No more arrests. It's done. I did all the things I'm going to do. And I think that basically ended. It's been a complicated couple days ever since that came out, because obviously the Mueller investigation didn't find nothing. They did find something. There's I think there's there's three conclusions that we know happened. We've got Paul Manafort had a lot of links to he owed a lot of money to a Russian oligarch, and he had close ties to a pro-Russian Ukrainian political party. And now he's, going to prison for freaking money laundering. Then you've got the fact that even if Russia didn't give information to the campaign, or at least not enough to be considered a crime, that several members of the Trump campaign did reach out, and they were amenable to getting it. Whether or not that crossed the line to being a crime is that's anyone's guess. Well, it's obviously not anyone's guess, because I guess they got to the bottom of it, and the answer was no. And then the third thing was that there was a hotel negotiation in progress during the Trump campaign, which he wasn't supposed to be doing. Those are all the things. Those are all bad, but those are like office bad, not like going to prison bad. There's a couple things. Yeah, it would be a crime in Canada. You are correct. I do think that the bigger damage it did is that the Mueller investigation, being so long and so public and so drawn out, is it did manage to distract people from countering Trumpness by sort of giving this hope that somehow that something was going to come out with Russia and it was going to end this nightmare, and that was it. When a lot of energy that could have been used trying to promote a alternative to Trump's horrible vision for the future of America, trying to counter narratives rather than, fact checks and updates on the Russia investigation. You had some people who, like Rachel Maddow, who banked her entire career on this. I do think that there was for a long time, if you were a center-right Democrat, like a Rachel Maddow, like I'm trying to think of someone else who was really into Russia. I just know Rachel Maddow like really went off the deep end about it. But, these, Vox-type Democrats who are right-wing, like slightly right of center, they banked so hard on the Russia thing because it was a more enjoyable narrative for them than neoliberal ideas lost the faith of America and they went to something else that was quite sketch. Because in order to come back from that, you have to develop new ideas and appeal to the voters, which, a lot of these people don't. They think that, like, appealing to voters, that's populism. That's doing things that the people want. That's not what we want. The world is, things are too complicated for the average person to understand. That's why the reason why healthcare is bad is because it covers too much. We can't, even though every other country in the world has public health care, we can't do that. This is nonsense. The peasants don't know what they're talking about. And I think that people are fucking sick of that. And Russia was a way to sort of hope that, oh no, it wasn't our ideas. It wasn't that Hillary Clinton ran a shitty campaign. It was bad guys from over there. They did it. We don't have to do any introspection this way. Which makes sense. Introspection's hard. Introspection's ugly. No one wants to do it. But now they have to. At least I hope so. And we'll see where that goes from there. I wonder where we're going to go from this point. Because now the centrists don't have their last hope that, the center-right argument narrative of the 2016 election is now pretty much dead. Now I know where they go with that now. All right. Tuesday's creations. Do you think social democracy could be viable in the United States? I think it has to be. I think that social democracy is not only viable in the United States, that it would thrive. I think that the American ideals of liberty, freedom, the ideas of like the four freedoms that FDR put forward, the ideas that equality of opportunity, all of those language, all of the universal things, all of those great things that Americans say they live up to, can easily justify a social democratic position. I think that social democracy, if it was not being constantly propagandized against by the right and the center-right, so by both Republicans and Democrats alike, if it was not being constantly attacked on both fronts, and Americans just engage with the ideas themselves, they would be very popular. And they are popular. Like, something like a vast majority of Democrats are pro-public health care. Almost, not a majority, but a higher percentage than you would think of Republicans are pro-public health care. Most Americans are against having an international empire. Most Americans would be for, paid time off for new mothers. Most Americans would probably even be for a public daycare if it was available, childcare. Probably even if you were to say community college didn't have tuition, I'm sure a lot. I know that one's controversial, but if you explain that, hey, it would just be like another level after high school, a lot of people, maybe not baby boomers, but a lot of millennials would understand because they're hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt from the mandatory education that they got. And so I think that the ideas are very ripe. There are more millennials and Gen Z people voting in the 2020 election than baby boomers and Gen Xers. There are now more of us than them. And I think that these ideas resonate very heavily with young people. Because we are going to be the ones who are going to reap what the baby boomers have sown. And what the baby boomers have sown was shit. And so we have to turn things around real quick. All right. Attentat deficit disorder. I know that you're gone, but I think we can go on forward with answering your question. And you could just watch it because I know you're watching the VOD. Hello. Thoughts on Washington officials stating they won't enforce the purchase age of firearms? I haven't heard about that, so I don't want to speak to something I don't know about. Should anti-nationalism apply to Native people? So this is from Gad Yariv. So should anti-nationalism apply to Native people? Shouldn't the goal be internationalist, socialist, global monoculture, assimilating and deleting cultural and ethnic boundaries? I mean, I think that like, all right, so let's get through this. Like, should anti-nationalism apply to Native people? And I do think that when it comes to anti-colonial movements, nationalism has a different meaning. It's not the same type of nationalism. The reactionary group of a dominant group of people who are freaking out about social gains made by people in the underclass. That is the definition of nationalism that is gross and wrong. The collective identity of people who have been made subaltern, who have been conquered, who are treated like shit. Things like black nationalism, things like the nationalist movements that push the French out of Indochina or out of North Africa, or the Palestinian nationalist movement. Those are not. They're called nationalist movements, but they come from a very different place, and they have a very different meaning. Those are struggles for liberation. Those are struggles for freedom. They are a different context than today, or than what we're talking about. And so I do think that what's going on there is we're just having a miscommunication with words, and that we have one word meaning two very different ideas. But and I think that is not, it's bad for communication. I think that we need to find a new word for one of those things. But as far as like assimilation and deleting cultural and ethnic boundaries, I disagree. I actually think that I am very much a pluralist. I believe that we need to, instead of trying to break down cultural distinctions, I do think we should break down cultural barriers and ethnic barriers. But what we should do is learn to have an idea that is... we should have an idea that we can embrace difference. I am a firm believer in multiculturalism. I am a believer that people who have different backgrounds, that have different ideas about the world, can learn to, put aside their differences if they're not hurting others. And I think that's something that we should embrace. Like, we should not be trying to stamp out all religion from the world. We should be learning how to celebrate religion and how all of the religions of the world can coexist in a peaceful manner that doesn't hurt people. Same thing with language and ethnicity. The fact that humanity is so diverse is one of the most beautiful things about it. I don't want to take that away. I don't want to be like the aliens in Star Trek where everybody has like a gray onesie and all look the same. I think humans are different from each other, and nothing makes any group better or worse, but our variety makes us is what makes us strong. It's what makes us. It's one of the best parts about being human, is that the experience goes so far across all different spectra, and that you can live many, many lifetimes and you will never fully experience the human experience. I think it's amazing. And I would never want that to go away. But I think that we need to reinterpret cultural difference, religious difference, as a positive, and living alongside people who are different from us as a positive, and not as groups in conflict, which is what the right would identify as these these in conflict identity groups. All right. 255 AD. I suspect people didn't watch that Girl Scouts video because the nerds who like YouTube history vids don't like the idea that little girls or social clubs are good for anything. Well, that's sad. Okay, like, well, first of all, I know that like 80-something% of the Step Back audience at this point are men, but the Girl Scouts are a great organization, and that I know that there are women in this audience who were Girl Scouts. I know because they commented on that video and they said some awesome stuff. And I do think that the Girl Scouts is a great organization. I think that anything that gets young girls to be together, to have a community, to build confidence in themselves in a society that is always trying to tell them they're nothing and grind them into the ground is great. And I wanted to show that in World War II, everybody fought, including the women, and that, you know, even in the, you know, the darkest times in history, young girls were heroes. They were war heroes, just like you know, the square-jawed blonde man from Iowa. There were Polish teenagers. Polish teenage girls who were part of the Girl Scouts that were making underground communications to subvert Nazi control, and I feel like that is a story that we don't tell, and we really should. Yeah. Keep in mind, Social Blade Productions are based on current statistics, and it could change. Yes, it kind of bases things linearly and not logarithmically, which is how a lot of YouTubes grow. But Step Back is fairly steady. Like, the thing about Step Back compared to other YouTube channels is that because I have a lot of friends who have made a lot of videos. A lot of YouTube channels have a growth that's sort of like this. They plateau, and then they make one video that goes crazy. And that sort of shoots their channel to another level, and then they go back to being normal, and then they shoot off. Step Back has never had a viral success. It has never had a breakaway successful video. The closest it came was a video I made on... I wrote the script for and did the voiceover for the channel Soliloquy, and it was put on Soliloquy, and that video did so well that it drove a lot of traffic to my channel. That is the closest I ever came to having a breakout success. But you can look at the history of the subscriber count of Step Back, and you will see that it is the most linear growth, that every video every month is just slightly better than the last. Sometimes things go slump, but for the most part, it's just so flat compared to a lot of other channels. And in some ways, that's I think that's in some ways that's annoying, because I get to see, like, I've watched many of my friends start up on YouTube, you know, really small channels, and then shoot past me, and now they're in a completely different universe, and I'm still here. But in some ways, you know, I like you know what I'm doing. I like what I'm doing. The growth, the channel has always been moving in a positive direction. I haven't gone through months where I've lost subscribers. I haven't. I have had a strong feeling that the channel is always getting better, and I feel really good about that. Because I think that a lot of when you have one of those spiky successes, you then are followed by a huge crash when not everybody sticks around, and I don't know. I don't know if the crash will ever, if I would handle the crash super well. All right. So, what if Brexit was the greatest April Fool's joke ever? Ha ha ha. Very funny. Very funny. No one's gonna have food. Very funny. Oranges are gonna be $100 or £100 or whatever. You can do it. Lightning will strike. King Peppy, I have been trying. I have been making Step Back videos since September of 2015. I have produced 200 Step Back videos, and I have yet to have a lightning success. I think I just need to embrace where Step Back is strong and where it is weak. And growing subscribers has always been its weakness. And I just have to realize that that Step Back it's a slow burn. You know, I am the turtle, you know, who's going steady until the end. Luckily, I am more stubborn than the YouTube algorithm, so eventually I'll win. That's my goal. I will get myself to 100,000 subscribers, dragging the algorithm along, kicking and screaming, because it wants any other YouTube channel on this entire website to get 100,000 subscribers before me. And I'm going to just keep making videos, keep getting better, keep growing the channel any way I can, and eventually I'll get there. But I know that I'm never going to have the viral success. I'm never going to make one video that takes off. I'm just going to keep bashing my head against this brick wall until it breaks. And I'm fine with that. You know what? That has been the trajectory of my entire goddamn life, and I think that if Step Back was going to be any different, I would be a little depressed. Every success I've ever had in my life has come after a long period of nonstop failures and me just being too stubborn to give up. And this is just one of many things. So, there you go. Radical Reviewer, history videos, nah, more like white nationalist propaganda. Yes, actually there was one time where I got for some reason, in the YouTube algorithm's infinite wisdom, it thought that Step Back viewers and Black Pigeon Speaks subscribers, so Step Back subscribers and Black Pigeon Speaks subscribers would really like each other's content. And so the algorithm started recommending Step Back videos on fucking Black Pigeon Speaks videos. And I had never gotten... That was like one of the worst months of my life, because I got this huge spike in views, but it was all from horrible Nazis. And it was one of the worst. It was one of the worst months. Yeah. For those who don't know, Black Pigeon Speaks is like an open fascist on YouTube who, like, basically, like, his opinions are almost, like, his opinions are, not even almost, his opinions are, like, completely completely the exact same as the person who shot up the mosque in Christchurch. They have virtually the exact same political opinions. And for some reason they thought that Step Back viewers would like Black Pigeon Speaks and vice versa. Ugh. How is there no turf wars in that? I don't know. Kane Russell, I was sad when I found out Cody had a Twitter. I'm not going to respond to that. All right. Why are history YouTubers tend to be right-wing rather than conservative or even reactionary? They always draw false concoctions from the past in today's politics. Well, Gadyreev, that's a good question. A lot of history YouTubers, I would say that depends on the area. I actually don't think that there's a ton of right-wing history YouTubers. There's Cody. I guess there's probably some that I just don't watch. But there was that one. There's a pretty popular history YouTuber who joined my Discord very early on, and I had to ban him on like the first day of the Discord being up. But I can't remember what his channel was called anymore. But it's true in actually like academic history too. In history departments at universities, you find a lot of conservatism in history, and I think it's because the way that history is taught under the undergraduate level, so like in high school and like in elementary school, is taught for a completely different purpose than it is at the university level. It's not academic. The purpose of history to high school and below is typically to promote a patriotic agenda, to make people proud of their country. And I think that one of the descriptions I remember hearing from one history curriculum was that the point of the history curriculum was to make patriotic citizens and good consumers. And this was unironic. This is actually what they were going for. And you go to university for history if you did really well in high school history. I imagine if you did well in high school history and you really, really liked it and you weren't like getting your stuff from like outside sources, that you could imagine the kind of people that would brought into it. And so a whole lot, as somebody who taught a lot of university students, a whole lot of first-year history students are really right-wing. And then when they come in the first year, they hit a fucking brick wall because university doesn't teach history that way. History in university is taught by academics who are in their fields, and very much, the whole reality has a left-wing bias thing comes to light. And so when they find that their patriotic ideas and that their militarist, like gung-ho, jingoistic idea of how much they love their country is not being catered to, they hit a wall pretty fast. And either they stick with it and grumble about the teachers, which I'm sure many did about me, or they change their mind and they get better, or they go to a different program, probably political science. Although I will say there are still, like in every faculty, there are history professors who are very right wing. There's still the Niall Fergusons out there, and so like political science, like economics, history is a place where the delusions of conservative intellectuals can still be entertained, and they can still hold positions and be catered to, and not have to face challenges because they just talk about troop movements or something like that. And so, they don't get challenges often. And so, but that's changing. Like, those professors I'm talking about are all fairly old, and that's sort of the way history used to be, and it is changing. My college U.S. and high school class teacher was more centrist than right. Well, you're lucky on that. All right. I gotta move on. Next question. But that was a good question, Gadariv. Opinion on that last non-compete video. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Luckily, I don't have to go and look for this. Night Watcher's pet. My wonderful moderator is here, and I know that she's listening. Could you please be so kind as to go to the non-compete channel and grab his latest video that's on stochastic terrorism and link it for the chat, please. This is the most recent non-compete video, and it is a response to the Christchurch shootings and explores a lot of the same ideas as my most recent video did. He did a lot better job, and I do remember one of the things he did this half-hour video that broke down this really interesting ideas. We approached it from different angles. I do think that my video does have is a little bit more accessible, and it's a little bit, it's going for a different type of audience, which I think is fine. But the thing about it I remember is that I uploaded the Quickstep video on Friday, after having worked on it all week, ready to go live for Monday. And then I had it up for my patrons. And then I think it was on Saturday, Friday or Saturday, the Pewdie Pipeline video came up. Yeah, and the Pewdie Pipeline video, which is about stochastic terrorism, was getting very close. And I was like, oh no, I have this video I already made that's coming out that's going to come very close. So I had to reach out to American Johnson and be like, listen, I have this video coming out on Monday. I already made it, and I just want you to know that I didn't mean to rip you off. We just kind of came on the right idea. Terry Weaver, you live 10 minutes from the second mosque? Jeez. You must have had a terrifying 2 weeks then. I'm sorry. I hope everything's okay with you. I hope nobody you know got hurt or worse. Yeesh. Yeah, I actually work with a woman from Christchurch, and we had on Friday we had a long talk about it and how messed up it was. Oh. Logan Anderson, can we ban the White House? Sure. Why not? How do you feel about Article 13 being passed? Honestly, I don't know enough about it to say much. Do you know a lot about Italian history? If so, was The Prince by Machiavelli a satire? I know enough about Italian history to know that I shouldn't answer that question, because I know the people who do know about Italian history have strong opinions about that. Horror wants to know, hey Tristan, are you gay agenda? Hell yeah, I'm gay agenda as fuck. Do you have any advice tech-wise about starting a YouTube channel? Yes. You'd only need to make a couple purchases. There's a couple purchases to get started, and then from that point you should be working on buying new pieces to get ready, because I do think that it's actually pretty easy on the pocketbook to get started. I have seen fairly successful YouTubers start with just like their phone. I would not be surprised if some popular YouTubers that have hundreds of thousands of subscribers still use their phone. I was watching, I think, the latest Sarah Zed video on true crime and the ethics of true crime. I do think I could be completely wrong, but from what I could tell, I think she records on her phone. I know that Mexi records on her phone. So like, phone cameras are actually really good these days, and phone microphones are actually pretty decent too. And so you can get started with just your phone. If you want to, honestly, like the biggest barriers in my mind are with getting comfortable in front of a camera or in front of a microphone, and getting comfortable to the ideas of storytelling methods and having compelling subjects to talk about where you do your keyword research before you do them. And honestly, the biggest hurdle is just getting started. A lot of YouTubers don't get started, and if they do get started, they don't focus on having a growth mindset. They don't focus on making every video better than the last. They don't focus on trying to learn new techniques, trying to master new tools, try to figure out new ways to make your next video better. And they stagnate for a long time and wonder why they don't succeed. Those are the things that are like the main focuses. But as far as tech goes, you could get started. Like the camera I'm talking to you on right now is $30. This webcam that I'm doing this stream on is $30. You can get it on Amazon. This microphone that I'm talking into is about $120. And it was $120 when I bought it in 2016. I imagine it's cheaper now. Is being unbiased in who you make fun of bad? I mean, they make insult any group. I don't understand what you have to. Can you rephrase that sentence, please? Yeah, go to the highest mountain and buy a Blue Yeti. The Blue Yeti costs $125, and despite what whiny videos on the internet will tell you, it's actually pretty good. It's what I'm talking to you on right now. To get something better than a Blue Yeti will cost you a lot of money. And for a long time, until you are making a lot of money from your YouTube channel, you are going to be fine just with the Blue Yeti. This camera that I have here, this is what I film on right now. This is a Canon HF-R 800. This camera, when I bought it, cost about $300, and I bought this to start Quickstep. This camera, I got through a grant from the Vlogbrothers. So I had already been making YouTube videos for a very long time when I got this. I filmed several. If you go on my channel and you watch my video on the Holy Prepuce, and if you watch my video on indigenous calendar systems, those two were filmed on my phone. Not even the phone I have now, actually, like a generation behind. And so you can do pretty well with just a camera that's on your phone and a microphone that you plug into your phone. Like, it's pretty impressive. And honestly, starting with something basic like your phone and then upgrading as the channel sort of builds its audience, that's probably the best way to start. The main thing, though, the main issues about YouTube channels that need to take off is more that they don't approach their content with a strategy. That they don't try to what's it called? That a lot of people don't just are very cavalier and very comfortable with what they do, and they don't try to improve, and they don't try to push for more things, and that they don't try to make things with the idea of growing a YouTube audience, because you have to make content in a certain way. You have to make content regularly, and you have to have an idea of what value you're coming for. A lot of people make their videos with the idea of what they want to make for themselves, and you have to really think about what you're going to make for your audience and the audience you're targeting. And I think that those are the things that are the real keys to success. I know Milo, I probably am like, how did you come up with video ideas at first? Well, Sunflower Socialist, I actually had a lot of videos that I had a lot of ideas that I just were like, when I started Step Back, I was already a first-year PhD in history. I had already been in grad school for several years, and I had lots of interesting history stories that I had already like gathered through, osmosis over the years. I do think that there are lots of what you really need to look for when you're starting from scratch on a YouTube channel is, first of all, you need like a thing that your channel's about. Your channel can't just be like for like whatever you want. That the days of that on YouTube are kind of over. You got to be like Radical Reviewer, who's in the chat. Radical Reviewer reviews complicated books that you get assigned in university classes so that you can understand what they're talking about and pretend you read the book in the seminar course. Perfect. And you can tell that he writes the videos in that fashion because he covers chapter summaries, key ideas, and impact in order to make it so that you get the most out of that book as you can. So you have to have a strategy like that, and you have to, and when you're first starting, you don't have an audience. Also, he's a dog, which is great because dogs are awesome. You have to have more of a you have to do research on what people are doing in that field that you want to go into, and then you have to see how you can either do there are two basics. Okay, actually, there are three basic strategies for what you can do once you've researched what other YouTubers are doing. One, you can do what somebody else is doing, but better. Two, you can do what somebody else is doing, but different. like niching down. Try to think. I'll think of some good examples for one. Talking about World War I, but with a professional budget and with a team of historians who will cover every single week in detail. That's doing something that someone else is doing, but better. 2, doing something different, taking a variation, talking about leftist politics on YouTube, but also having a high aesthetic value and using a lot of platonic dialogues and trying to make it more theatrical. That's the ContraPoint strategy. There you go. Or 3, take 2 ideas that that you know will work with a certain target audience if you put them together. I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head at the moment, but it's not... one's not coming to mind. But thoughts on getting... So the main thing to get started is to do that research. Find out what people are doing and do it. Or find the thing that you can differentiate yourself. And then you need to start making videos with the idea of search traffic. Because when you're first starting YouTube, you're not going to have an audience that will watch whatever you put out. Which means that you can't make something popular. Which means that your content should be focused on maximizing on search results, because that's how people are going to find you at first. Also, collaborating with other creators. Eventually, you need to have a bit more of an audience before you can start doing that. But it's choosing your video subjects in that way and writing them in that way. All right. For anybody who doesn't make YouTube, I should probably move along because there are 45 people, and I imagine all of you are not YouTubers. All right. Is dipping French pastries in milk kosher? I have no idea. Did you know that the movie Birth of a Nation inspired the look of the KKK revival? That does not surprise me. It was a very popular film at the time. Does that mean the KKK started with irony poisoning, like how the alt-right uses irony now? I don't know. Was the Birth of a Nation was very pro KKK. Like it wasn't. I don't know where the irony would be, but I think it is kind of. It does show that the KKK of the 1920s is a different entity than the KKK of the 1860s and the 1870s. They're different entities, and that's why they call them the first and second Ku Klux Klan. Because one, they were inspired by different historical moments, but two, there's not, because of how big the Klan in the 20s was, there was actually a pretty, there's not a lot of institutional memory in those organizations. They weren't very unified or collected anyway. And then when the second Klan started, there wasn't a lot of like past members who were either still alive or were still able to be involved to help out. Especially because in the 1920s, the second Klan was actually really popular in a lot of states that it wasn't in the first Klan. The first Klan was very popular in the South, while the second Klan had almost universal appeal across all of the United States and parts of Canada. I think that the biggest place, there's a brace for Kelly here, the biggest home of the Ku Klux Klan when it was going through the second Klan in the 1920s was in Indiana, which I'm sure, as my wife is a Hoosier, that she's very proud of those things. And then the third Klan, which started in the 1950s and 60s, was opposition to the Civil Rights Movement. And that was more of a Southern movement. Second wave, yeah, the second wave was mostly anti-Catholic, and it was mostly about being against like German and Italian and Irish immigrants. But the third Klan was the anti-civil rights one. And the third Klan is what more or less continues to today. Beastativity, gotta go. Good stream. All right, see you later. See you later, Beastativity. Have fun. The Klan and Mike Pence. Shame, Kelly. Shame. I know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. How do you feel about right libertarians? Also, I like you to talk about the militia movements. I hope I'm not asking too much. Right libertarians are weird. And I feel like I was talking about this yesterday with Thought Slime. I was like, I feel like right libertarians are like, they take like these petty political desires from like well-off white guys in their like 20s and 30s, but because of like there's a great line in The Simpsons that I think that is the only reason why like it's like like right-wing libertarian ideas are extremely petty grievances that only insane but well-off white dudes want. But to quote The Simpsons, I'm a white male between the ages of 25 and 35, and everyone listens to me, no matter how dumb my ideas are. And so they're taken seriously. Did you thank Thought Slime for me? Yes, I did. Also, I'd like to talk about the militia movements. I hope I'm not asking too much. I'm not super well up to date on the militia movements. That might be an interesting video. Talk about like right-wing terrorism in the 90s and how circa like 1995, 1996, people were the number one terrorist threat, the things that people were afraid of in America were like the Michigan militia because of what's his name? Because the person who bombed Oklahoma City, freaking not Ted Kaczynski, Timothy McVeigh. Because like that was what people thought terrorism was. That was the face of terrorism, like pre 9/11, and like there was Waco, Texas, and all sorts of right wing terrorists that were like a thing. Is it cruel to own a dog if you don't have a backyard? I don't think so. 255. I've known very responsible dog owners who don't have a backyard. They have to make sure that they walk their dogs regularly. I would probably, it would be much harder to keep a happy large dog. I think that if you had a small dog, that they would be perfectly happy in an apartment. And, you have to be willing to give them the exercise that they need. But you don't necessarily need a backyard to have a dog. Now, I imagine it's better and easier to have a dog if you have a backyard, but it's not necessary. It'd be cool if you did a video on autism rights for April, not necessarily this April. There's a fair bit of history behind it, and it's a shame in the mainstream like other social justice movements. Whew. I could do that. I should do something like that. I don't. As somebody who doesn't have autism spectrum disorder, I don't really. I feel like I wouldn't be speaking much to experience. But then again, I'm not gay, and I did a video, but I did like 4 videos on LGBTQ plus history. So, if that was going to be an excuse, then I was going to. Then I was going to move away. But I should. I'm not sure what I have to look. Let me see. I'll put on my thing. I'll have to think about it. I have to see if I can make it work. I have to do some research. What about a medium orange Spitz type dog? Hey, I think you're talking about a specific dog, and that dog can make his own YouTube videos, so I think he's fine. All right. Gosh. I really need to make some progress on these questions. I'm not moving fast enough. Are you aware of the UK scandal from a few years back where schools in Muslim areas were supposedly trying to impose Sharia on students? Essence of Thought brought up in a video recently. That sounds less than true, or if it is, it's like a half-truth that's not being told properly. I think you mentioned it before. It's not... First of all, it's one of those things. Sharia doesn't mean what people think it means. 2, Sharia has a very narrow scope in most Muslim-majority countries. 3, the media blew it up because saying Sharia law makes white people's brains explode. because they don't know what it means and they are being trained through racist dog whistles to be scared of it. And 4, my guess is that it's not actually even happening. So I did a whole video on Sharia. Yes, I did. It does not mean what most people think it means. And in today's context, because this is a thing that a lot of Islamophobes don't seem to notice, is that, I don't know if you know this, but Muslims don't live in the 9th century when the Islamic code was drawn out, when the Sharia code was made. And most Muslim countries have become modern countries with modern legal codes, and have for well over 100 years. And if there are Sharia courts, they usually have no legal power. And if they do, it's over extremely narrow edge cases, because they use it to take care of things like divorce and inheritance. You might have a couple exceptions, like Saudi Arabia and Iran, but they are not exemplary of the entire Islamic world. And Sharia law is large and complex and strange, and made by a and Muslim people have it can be very personal. The thing, like, I think this is one of the things. I'm going to make this constructive. It's one of the things about Islam that I think is one of the most fascinating angles about it that we don't talk about, because people don't make YouTube videos about Islam people don't make videos about Islam that don't just talk about how evil it is. And so you don't get to experience that. Like, Islam, compared to a lot of other religions, is way more like academic, and it's about scholarship. Like, for example, Muslims believe that you can't really read the Quran unless it's in classical Arabic, because I don't know if you've ever met a biblical scholar or anybody who's into Christian theology, but the fact that there are many, many translations of the Bible leads to a lot of headaches. And Muslims try to get around that by focusing on the classical Arabics, or classical Arabic. So, you know, it's almost as if the second largest religion on earth that has over 1 billion people is not a monolith. A video on the Islamic Golden Age, that'd be fun. I do like the Islamic Golden Age. I think, like, the thing though is I already have so many things I want to do. That's the thing. I'm always like, I always want to do all the videos, but I'm only one man. I mean, I can maybe change things up if I get, like, super huge as a YouTuber, and I can, like, hire editors and stuff like that, but I'm nowhere close to that. So, yeah. Would a leftist commune oppress Nazis? Pass. Tristan would be a great Afro-American man. He has similar facial features. I do not know how to respond to that. Do you think men in my very hairy family lack testosterone? I'm very oversimplifying the whole thing about testosterone there. Testosterone, like, think about sex, like, as in, like, biological sex, is that it is extremely complicated and all over the place. There's, of course, genitals, there's genes, and then there's hormones and hormone response rates, and then there's secondary sex characteristics, and all of these things are on different spectra for different people. So, you know, you could be somebody who has XY chromosomes but has a vagina but has testicles, but your body doesn't respond to testosterone that is produced by them, so you develop breasts. Like, that is a thing that can happen. And the fact that, like, biological sex is extraordinarily complicated and is so many different factors shows that, like, honestly, I can't really answer. I can't really answer why your family is hairy and whether or not it has anything to do with testosterone. There are interesting thing to say about that. There are as many, first of all, 2% of the population is intersex. That is 1 in 50 people. That is more than there are genetic redheads. And a lot of people are intersex and don't even know it because it doesn't affect their daily lives. There are people who find out that they are intersex in their 40s. The most common time that people find out that they are intersex is when they're trying to conceive, because a lot of times intersex people are infertile. Not all the time, but sometimes, or a lot of the times. But you know, like, I would have no idea if I was intersex unless I did like a blood test to find out if my body responded to hormones, or if I found out what sex characteristic, or what, like, you know, what sexual internal organs I had or anything like that. I've never had a body scan. I have no idea. So, yeah, intersex people are real. That's all I gotta say. Okay. All right. All right. What do you expect will happen to Ukraine in the next 10 years? Oh, man. I think that... so this is from Mac. I imagine that it's going to be a international sore spot for a long time, until either... basically until people forget about it, which, like, most people already have, and then it'll either... the Crimea situation will more or less resolve in being part of Russia, or it'll just be like today, where it'll be like Taiwan or all the other parts of the world where the ownership is disputed, and that'll probably go on for a long time. So I don't see a quick solution to what's going on in Ukraine at the moment. The geopolitical situation between Russia and Ukraine is I don't see a quick resolution to it. Thoughts on big corn in the United States? Will there be big eggplant? I don't know. Big corn is very well subsidized. I don't know what you're getting at with big eggplant, but that's your call. That's your call, friend. I don't really know. I don't know. Is there like big eggplant subsidies being planned or something that I don't know about? And also, yeah, all I can think about is like eggplant emojis. Do you think that there's validity to the idea that society can be not ready for democracy? The people within it aren't educated or familiar with ideas of civil participation? No, I do think that you do not need to be. That most people, like, the idea of what you do or do not want governing your life, what principles you want governing your life, are rather like I think there is an elitist notion that people can be too dumb for democracy, and that. If you remember the end of the Paris Commune video, I think I would say I agree with what Dr. Donnie Gluckstein said in the video, where it's like, there's this idea that, you know, unless you're like rich and you went to all the nice schools and you're an expert on all the things, then you're not like worthy of leading. But I think that really anybody can, and people have. Tristan, did you forget that the universe is a computer? I think that's a reference to a conversation we had a long time ago. All right. Did anyone really expect Mueller to take Trump down? I think a lot of centrists were really banking on it. It was their one way. Like I said, it was their way of. People think in narratives. People think in stories, and when your political self-concept has to do with, think like when the entire political idea, the way that you think economy should run, all those things, is called into question, it's easier to just think, oh, it was like, it was an outsider that was wrong. We don't have to think. We don't have to think about it. We don't have to be critical. We don't have to ask why until you do. I'm sure they're already thinking of a way to not ask why. I don't know what it is yet because I only follow that world tangentially. So I'm sure I'll find out eventually. But I watched Democracy at Work video where Richard Wolff said fascism is the state and government instigating authoritarian control to save capitalism. Do you agree with that definition? Yeah, I think that's a pretty good answer. That's Richard Wolff. That's pretty Marxist, but Marx has a lot of points. It makes a lot of good points. So, yeah. I can understand wanting Mueller to throw Trump out. I imagine that would have made anybody's day. I would have been happy to see to get Trump out of office via this. I just wasn't optimistic that it was going to happen, but if the apocalypse happens tomorrow, do you think society will still continue normally? Will children still have to go to school because people believe it's false? I think that, okay, like, apocalypses are never permanent. Like, the idea of, like, Mad Max world where everything is terrible forever is never actually the case. Apparently there's a good Kim Stanley Robinson book that comes out where it's, like, post-apocalyptic, but, like, actually post-apocalyptic, where, like, the apocalypse happens, but then people get their shit together and, like, life goes on. Takes place in, like, New York that has been flooded because of climate change and becomes, like, sort of a Venice-like city. I haven't read it, but I'd like to. I think that, honestly, the kids will end up going back to school at some point. Might take a couple years, but, humans have a tendency to just kind of keep doing things even after the worst happens. Not saying it's enjoyable or it's a thing that we should look forward to doing, but we have a terrible knack of persevering. All right, 1 through 8. Do you have anything positive to say about Trump, or do you at least, do you like anything he has said or has done? I mean, there's some people who might say that he is partially responsible for the breaking open of the Overton window. I don't think that's true. I think that the context of that was coming. If there was one thing you could say is that Trump, like George Bush, has made liberals and socialists well, they were supposed to make them allies like they did during the Bush administration, in which they were promptly, then the socialists were promptly abandoned by when Obama came in office. But I do think that it is that the Trump question and, like, why did Trump get elected is making a lot more people than I anticipated really think about how we got to where we are and what were the decisions we've been making over the last few decades that have gotten us to where we are. Whether that answer is answer is nice or terrifying, it is asking those bigger questions in a political reality that seems so closed and stagnant, not even 4 years ago, is interesting. And if the left can get on top of that and take control of this narrative, it could be used to be a process of great positive change. I really don't like that we had to go through such a period of darkness to get to it, but I didn't say to say whether or not something was positive. You just said to look for a positive. What would you say to someone who says, even if the left gained political power, we can't repeat social democratic successes of the 1950s because we don't have the advantages of the post-war economy today? I think somebody responded to you with that. I disagree. I think that global economics is not a zero-sum game, and we can make it work. Whew. All right. I'm starting to pick up pace because it's 9 o'clock. I have 1 hour to answer 32 questions. So, got to keep it to 2 minutes a question, I guess. Why are Justice Democrats and Social Democrats focused on wars in the Middle East, but not as well on Ukraine and Nigeria? Because they're not as well covered by media outlets. Because the only organizations that have the money and resources to... the only organizations that have enough money and resources to send people to places like Nigeria are center to center right organizations like Associated Press and CNN and things like that. And so like a lot of times, like people like the young, like not all the time with like groups like the Justice Democrats and like the Young Turks and such, but like they really only can react to what news is put in front of them, and what news is put in front of them is run by corporations that really don't give a shit about places that don't have tangible natural resources that they can they can then bring back to run the empire. When will PewDiePie say death to all Jews? He already has. Radical Reviewer wants to know if I've read Can the Subaltern Speak? I have read Can the Subaltern Speak, but I am loath to say I don't remember very much of it. I know it was good. I know it's important, but I read it like in 2011, and I don't remember very much of it anymore. I don't like Scouts-like organizations because I don't like anything that encourages conformity. I'd be less suspicious of the Scouts if they didn't have uniforms. I hate uniforms. As someone who was a Scout, I would say it's a little... There's a little truth to that, but for the most part, the good that the organizations do, at least in Canada where it's secular, outdoes the harm it does. I think that for kids just belonging in a group, we're social animals. People like doing it, and it's not like the army or like a cult where they like actively try to destroy your self-identity. It's just like, you know, it's just a uniform you wear. If you think about it, if you can, one leftist argument you can make about it is that by wearing a uniform, it erases class distinctions. And if there's one thing that I can say about the Guides or the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts, is that they are great for giving stuff to do and giving hope and doing stuff for kids who do not grow up from means. That the white suburb kid and the poor kid all have they're all the same status in the organization. They all have the same uniform. It costs the same amount of money. I think that does say something. All right. Will aliens give us space HIV? Probably not. Do you do many collaborations? I feel like I found this channel from a collaboration video. You probably did. I do a lot of them. Maybe I'm confusing. Did you do a collaboration with Overly Sarcastic Productions? Oh no. I really wish I could. I have had like one brief back and forth with Blue from Overly Sarcastic Productions. I would love to do a video with Overly Sarcastic Productions. I love the style of that channel. I love everything about Overly Sarcastic Productions. It's a great channel. They're a bit big, too big a fish for me. Like, I feel like they won't, it would be hard for them to give me the time of day. They've probably never heard of me. But if they ever reached out and they wanted to do something, I totally would. And when I'm a bigger YouTuber, maybe I'll reach out to them. Can I reset the universe now? Sure. If you have to pick, do you prefer state communism, i.e. Vietnam, or strong social democracy, i.e. like most of Scandinavia? I would go probably with state communism, Vietnam-ish. I would like it if it was democratic. I can't remember if Vietnam is a democracy. 'Cause I'm a dumb. I mean, they did a video with the swords guy who then went on a stump ride into Europa. Well, that sucks. Do you think that the UK will become a US colony after Brexit? Actually, that's not far off. I think that Brexit would... if anything, Brexit will probably result in Britain being fairly dependent on the United States as their only trading partner, because Europe is probably not going to be super happy with them after they do this. They've made it such a pain in the ass. How would you combat the Eurocentrism in history and philosophy classes? Tell different stories. It's harder research to do. It's harder to find, but trying to find stories of people who don't follow the main narrative, and tell a good story. That's the trick of all history. All right, where are we at? 26 questions. 26 questions. We can do this. We can do this. We can do this. All right. How would you all right, did that one. Do you get a lot of demonetization, Terry? Yes, I do. Yes, I do, Terry. I get, I would probably say between 50 and 60% of my videos are demonetized. Thoughts on getting easy on YouTube? Is it over? Doesn't make video screaming at the top of my lungs at women is not profitable anymore. Argos, I think that making it on YouTube is about as hard. It's about as hard as it's always been. Media is all like, the thing about YouTube is that it is a platform that is always growing. That there's still more and more people getting onto YouTube every day. I think that in the past, it was easier to just make whatever you wanted and put it up and get popular. Today, you just need to be more specialized. The only difference between starting a YouTube channel like 5 years ago versus starting one now is that you're probably going to have to look for a more niche audience, which is fine because YouTube's gotten a lot bigger since 5 years ago. And so there are a lot of niche audiences where there's enough people that they could support a pretty popular channel. You can't just be like the guy for everyone anymore. There's never going to be another Vlogbrothers or Vsauce, for example. That era of YouTube is in the past. Did you hear about Mexico's request for Spain to give them reparations for the Spanish genocide of the Mayans? I've heard, I mean, like, Mexico has requested all sorts of stuff, if that's a new one, but there's a lot of channels that have, or a lot of requests that Mexico has made to Spain to undo all of the horrible things they've done, and Spain does not listen. Who is your favorite Canadian Prime Minister? I honestly don't know. I'm not much of a Canadianist. I don't really... I've only lived through, like, 4 prime ministers, and none of them were that great. Lester B. Pearson? Or Mackenzie King? I'm trying to remember which was the one that put in universal health care. I think it was Lester B. Pearson, but I'm probably wrong. Do you think colleges have become overrun by leftist nut jobs? No, it's been overrun by centrist nut jobs. The, like, prevailing political, if you were to say there was a prevailing political theory that is, like, taking over U.S. campuses or university campuses in general, it's sort of this enlightened centrism that a lot of university professors have because, I don't know, it's just a thing. So, honestly, like, if you go to a university and you work in a university, there are some departments like economics that are full of right-wing crazy people. There are a lot of departments that will have people all over the political spectrum because their work doesn't really intersect with politics very much. Like, the politics of people in astrophysics doesn't really matter. But if you're in like the social sciences and stuff like that, you're going to find a generally centrist-y type audience. And then you're going to find like a few radical leftists, and they always hang out in their own areas. And also there's a few disciplines where, yeah, leftists hang out. Like, you're not going to find a lot of conservative film studies professors, let's just say that. Or cultural theory is another one where you're not going to find a lot of conservatives. But for the most part, you're going to get people from center to center right in most departments generally, because there are some departments that cater explicitly to right-wing people like economics, but then there's just a lot where it doesn't really matter and they can be whatever they want. And, you know, that it just depends on the person. Like, what's it called? I knew when I was an undergrad, when I was in grad school, I knew a, like, men's rights activist, Sargon Akkad fan, who was doing his, like, master's degree in neuroscience. And then I also knew, like, I knew all the radical leftists because we all drank together. That's where you'll find all the leftists. The leftists are the ones that hang out in the bar all the time. And they're, at my university, they were all the people who were in film and in media studies and in library and information science. But that was just, you know, that was my unique experience. I don't know why, but leftists like a bevy. Okay. The thing is that the perception that universities are being overrun by leftists is because conservatives are so entitled to thinking that, like, they have opinions that have merit, that have no basis in any reality. Like, for example, they'll think that there's a leftist bias in, like, geography departments because they don't entertain climate change denial, or, like, they don't entertain, like, creationism in biology departments, and, like, that's why there's left-wing bias, or because people protest when, like, people who openly call for invading Middle Eastern countries, overthrowing their leaders, and converting the populace to Christianity are protested when they come to speak on a campus, which, you know, is not surprising. But also, is it really a left-wing bias when, like, conservatives come to speak at a university, massive protests happen, but they still get to speak, they still do their thing, they still get paid their money, and then they leave, and then, like, Noam Chomsky comes to talk at a university, and, like, 20 people show up, and the you know, the social justice club that got him to come didn't have enough money to buy his plane ticket, so he had to pay it himself. Like, I don't know. Where's the bias? I don't know. There's a more public display when right-wing people come to speak. They bring out a lot more energy, but, like, left-wing speakers are very rarely given, like, the invited speaker treatment. Like, yeah, you hear about, like, oh, Ben Shapiro, a person with zero qualifications to talk about anything, comes to speak at a university about how much he dislikes people for being different from him, and it causes protest. Okay, that's one thing. But, like, freaking, I don't know, like, I had, like, you had, this isn't a university, but you had, like, Anita Sarkeesian, a person with a master's degree in media studies, coming to speak in Toronto, and the place wasn't even sold out. Like, I don't know. Do cats require walking? I'm a male feminist and an anarchist. Should I get a cat? Cats are pretty good for being low maintenance. You do not have to walk cats. Cats hate when you try to walk them. Just they're great. They're great pets. Just only get one for the most part. They're actually One thing I've learned is they're actually fairly territorial, and I learned this too late, but one of the advice that I was given is that cats don't necessarily need a friend. They're fairly solitary creatures.
Oh yeah, Tristan?
Yeah.
Great.
And also fairly territorial. Do you believe that the Mueller report should be released in full instead of summarized by Donald Trump's hand-picked attorney general? Yes, that seems rather non-controversial, but yeah. Should colleges limit speech or allow free speech entirely? Colleges do allow free speech. The ways that my experience with universities is that they let all sorts of people talk, and unfortunately, in the way that things work in universities is they drawn on, like, you know, who has money and who doesn't. And so, like, I've seen firsthand, like, when I was at Western, Jordan Peterson came to talk, and the trans students were forbidden from protesting. They had to protest off campus. They were not allowed to protest the Jordan Peterson event. On top of that, we had a American Studies speaker series that when they brought somebody in who criticized billionaires, the billionaire like philanthropists that were funding the American Studies department pulled all their funding, and the American Studies department basically went under. So when people say that there's like a left-wing bias in universities, it's like if you think about the actual economics of invited speakers at universities, and you actually see how it works, it's that right-wing speakers get tons of money and tons of attention when they come to speak at universities. And sometimes, like, inviting a left-wing speaker to come to a university and speak can sometimes result in your entire department losing its funding, which I think is super shitty. I hate to be that guy, but what about South Africa? I'm not a nutcase claiming white genocide, but I know some South African who have claimed that they've dealt with the racial. Yeah, it's bullshit. I'm not gonna. Okay. Do you have a stream schedule? Yes, Jiffy Chips, I do. I stream. This is all in Eastern time, Toronto time anyway. I stream on Monday afternoons from 1 to 2, and then I stream on Tuesday nights from 7 to 10. This might be a great video idea. It might be. It'd actually be a good quick step idea, I think, Audible Anarchist. I have to elaborate a little bit, but I do think that if you were to say that if you were to bell curve the political leanings of the university professoriate, it would probably be center to center right, because university professors tend to come from more affluent backgrounds than the average person, which means a gravitation towards a slightly right-wing bent, but that's obviously very dependent on departments. And on top of that, that left-wing speakers don't get any attention, and they often are invited at great cost and possibly big financial ruin, versus right-wing speakers who come to speak and get tons of attention. They get lots of protest, but they tend to come and they get paid to come and they get tons of money. Yeah. Okay. That'd be a great quick step. I should do that sometime. If you want to learn about the history of philosophy, you should watch The History of Philosophy Without Any Gaps. It would probably help your religious video. I would also recommend to, and then it kind of cuts off. All right. History of Philosophy Without Any Gaps. That's a podcast, right? I should probably, I'll take a looky-loo. I'll take a look-a-rooney. Let me just, boop, write that down. Why do left-wingers I disagree with actively avoid me after finding out I don't agree with them, but right-wingers I disagree with them, they're like, all right, and don't treat me differently? I think because a lot of right-wing people, I mean, to be I think that one of the things is to be right-wing is usually to be either comfortable enough or to not think that the issues of the world are important enough to warrant getting angry, while left-wing people, like if you're left-wing enough, you see politics as a game of life and death. And if you see the world as fundamentally just that we need to preserve the way things were, that's a different mindset than like, things are wrong and we need to fix them. But also it really depends upon how you disagree with people. There's a lot of left-wing people who, like if I went off on everyone I disagreed with, I would be a very lonely person. And so, it's just whether or not you're being a jerk. All right. Let's see. If you want to learn... Oh, yeah, we already did that one. All right. That disorder where your body doesn't respond to testosterone, I've always thought that would be awful for trans men. I imagine it would be. Do you like folk music? Yeah. I couldn't name a folk artist to save my life, but if it listens... if it's typically when I hear it, it sounds good. Besides getting rid of it, what would be the next administration to do to make amends for the trans military ban? I would probably allow trans people to serve in the military again, and I would preferably make sure that the military that one of the things, if I was like, if you had to keep the military and you had to figure out what to do with it, it would be it would be increasing resources for services to help veterans with their medical needs, especially because if you're going to take people in the prime of their lives, destroy their bodies and break their minds by throwing them into some of the worst situations humans can go to, you definitely should take care of their health as much as you can. And if there's one thing that you can do for trans people in the military is take care of their healthcare needs. They have healthcare needs. Provide them. I think that everybody should have all of their healthcare needs taken care of. But if that's, if you're a trans service member in the military and you are going to sacrifice your life for the empire, that empire better give you the top-notch transitionary medicine that you want. You should get that top-shelf shit, All right. Thoughts on Jean-Paul Sartre? Which one's he? Jean-Paul Sartre. Old school. Okay. French philosopher, playwright, novelist, political activist, biographer, literary critic, one of the key figures in the philosophy of existentialism and phenomenology. Also known for his open relationship with prominent Simone de Beauvoir. Yeah, I feel like if you want my opinion on Jean-Paul Sartre, and I'm reading his Wikipedia page, then I'm probably not going to give you an answer that you want. I'm not that much of a philosopher. That's one thing I think that. If there's one of the things that my approach to bread tube culture differs from a lot of other people is that as I come to it as a historian, not as a philosopher, and so I don't really know. I'm not really well read on the political philosophy, because I didn't take it in school. I took history. All right. How do societies escape fascism? Offering a viable alternative. How do fascist societies escape that system? That's the same question. Do the Scouts still ban the gays? I don't think they do. If they do, that's bad, and they shouldn't do that. Why do Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts have separate organizations? In Israel, our scouts are not gender specific. That's changing, at least in Canada. I know that girls can join right in Canada. Girl Guides and Girl Scouts, I think, makes sense because young girls need... there's a lot more work that needs to be done to undo the shit that society is going to do to all those young girls, to make them feel a feeling of self-worth and have a good sense of self-esteem and such, that boys don't need as much. But in Canada, they're not called the Boy Scouts, they're just called the Scouts, and the Scouts are gender neutral. Terry Weaver, will they build an Atlantic tunnel? I don't think the thing about capitalism is that will they build a tunnel? Well, the thing about capitalism, no, but a lot of those like kind of like mega projects, like building a tunnel underneath the Atlantic or building a bridge across the Bering Strait, or any of those things are not really things that can be made profitable in like by the end of next quarter. And so those sort of long-term thinking, not necessarily immediately profitable things can't really be done by capitalist societies. Their governments don't have enough power to build them. They don't have the resources to make them happen, and they're not going to be profitable fast enough for a... they're not going to be profitable soon enough for a corporation to think that it will make sense fiscally for the next quarter. So yeah, you're never going to get like your turbo, your sci-fi dreams, your space elevators or anything like that in a capitalist system. You ignored my question about getting out of fascism. I did not. I answered it. Offer a viable alternative. People turn to fascism because they think that their only option on the left is this sort of milquetoast, watered down, lean in, faux woke, center right liberalism, and like that doesn't inspire anybody. And I think I think the chat's blowing up. I think somebody more famous than me has shown up in the chat, and it's Thought Slime. And coming in with the D&D reference, the Scouts are also Sultana now. Oh man, good stuff. It's a very inside joke. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thought Slime is a player in my D&D campaign, and he's coming back on Wednesday, and we're all very excited. That's tomorrow night. Tomorrow night! Ah. What society is fascist? How do you get out? Okay. All right, Comrade Jeb, you have a good night. I'm going to kill the rest of the party. Don't tell Tristan. Oh, no. Okay, where are we? I gotta wake up and be more intergaging. All right. Uniforms erase class distinctions. Yeah, that's how they sell the UK parents on uniforms. I didn't buy that rationale when I was 7. You know what, though? Like, if you can get past the uniforms thing, I think that the Scouts and the Girl Guides are awesome organizations. Yeah, okay, if you disagree with the uniforms thing, but, like, on the inside, they're great. Okay. Things are getting hot and heavy in there. Okay. I'd have thought you aren't young enough for Sargon fans to exist, but exist when you were an undergrad. He really wasn't a thing until 2014. Yeah, that's true. I also, when I was an undergrad, I also was not very online. When I was an undergrad, when I was an undergrad, I lived on campus, and the campus had extremely shitty internet. And also, I lived in a very small, tight-knit community on campus, and so I had more of a life. I I spent more time with friends and getting shit-faced and going to class and stuff. And so actually from like the years of like 2010 to 2013, I was completely checked out of like internet culture. And then I didn't come back. When I came back in 2013, that was when I was like, oh, all of the YouTube atheists have suddenly become super right wing. What's that all about? Alrighty. What do you think of pro-gun leftists like Bad Mouse? I have my issues with Bad Mouse. I don't think that pro-gun leftists, I don't have as much of it. I can't bring up to have as much of an issue with them as I want to. Like the thing is, like the right-wing pro-gun people are usually just trying to, like, you know, they're just shills for the gun industry. I do think that like the sort of leftist prepper type that thinks that like, oh, I need to like train for my guns because, you know, we're going to overthrow the government with like, you know, with their like armored personnel carriers and predator drones because like I went to the shooting range with an M16. Oh, they wouldn't even get an M16. Here it would be like, you know, a rifle of some kind. I don't think that that's a progressive way forward, but I know that there are people who think that that is the case. I don't disagree with them enough to like say I hate them or that I like strongly disagree with them. But like, if we were having beers, I would probably tell them why I don't think that, that, you know, if the gamers all rise up, that we would be able to overthrow the powers that rule over us, and we would need to find another tack. I don't know what that is, but I don't think that if the left just had enough guns, we'd be able to do things. But I do think that the idea of like the Black Panther idea that like black people should exercise their Second Amendment rights to protect themselves from the police, that makes sense. If I was I mean, the fact that like the police are like way more likely to kill you for having a gun if you're black, but like, you know, I get the Malcolm X, you know, by any means necessary idea. Again, if we were having drinks, I'd probably talk about, you know, where we disagreed, but for the most part, I can't bring myself to say, no. Oh man, all right. Whew. We're making progress. All right, thoughts on John Oliver? I've said this, like, John Oliver is not perfect. His segment on Venezuela was terrible. And sometimes he's still like, you could tell he's still like a centrist in a lot of ways. But like, as far as like what we get on TV, he's one of the better ones. His videos, his segments do bring more attention to issues about predatory capitalism and income inequality, and talks about that more than I think any other like mainstream talk show. It's like still, you know, not nearly enough, but I it's the best we're gonna get. It's the best like political talk show that could be put out by a massive corporation at the moment. Which country has a social and political model you support? At the moment, none. Once a society is already fascist, how do you get out? The thing about fascism and like authoritarianism in general is that it's never the idea that that it's going to be a boot pressed on you for forever is not. It's not forever. Like, the thing is, authoritarian. I feel like I'm just going to start parroting a Thoughtsline video from a few months ago. Like, authoritarianism and oppression can't last forever. If history has taught us anything, is that oppressors always face a reckoning. It might take a long time, but they can't keep you down forever. And that people will react to a situation like that. So I think that it would be very different depending upon different historical contexts and places. But I think that you're never going to have an authoritarian organization without a resistance. Thoughts on monarchism? It's popular in certain countries like Brazil. I don't believe in authority. So you never said that? Okay. How dare you? I think wasn't that like the thesis of your Keep Hope Alive? I feel like that was like the galvanizing speech at the end of the Keep Hope Alive video. Yeah, as somebody who would be considered an anarchist, I think that I would be rather against the monarchy. Okay. Do you stream the D&D game anywhere? We do not. It's just a personal home game. For me, like I entertain the idea of trying to make content out of my my D&D hobby, and I tried for a few months, but honestly, I didn't like it very much, and I like that I have something that is a creative outlet that's just for me and my friends, and it's just a thing that we do where there's no camera, there's no comments, there's no chat. It's just a group of people having fun. It's like the one thing I have that I try to not turn into a side hustle. Was I supposed to not be streaming it? Was I not supposed to be streaming it? Oh my! Is there a secret camera? There's a few moments of our stream of our game that I would be I'd be nervous seeing that on the internet. All right. How are you doing? This is my first time watching a live stream. Well, ZK Gerrymander, welcome to the stream. I'm glad that there's a lot of first timers here, so that's great. I'm really happy that you're here. Please, we have a really active chat going on. Everyone's having a good chat, so be comfortable. We're going to go for another maybe about 20 minutes or so. Okay. What can Brazil and the Netherlands do with their governments now that they have fascist governments? I keep feeling like I'm gonna parrot myself, but you need to provide a viable alternative. I don't know what the situation is because those are very different countries with very different political contexts, but a lot strengthen the opposition. The opposition to the Trumpian right is going to be like the DSA, and it's going to be like the DSA and the Sanderses. It's not going to be like the Ezra Kleins or whatever. Offer a viable alternative. The reason why so many people have gone to the radical right is because they've been told over and over again that they can't expect better than what they get, and that things are always going to be getting worse, and that's just the way things are. The world can be better. It could be a lot better. And we can make that happen. You just got to undo the programming that somehow this is impossible. This is a dream. That this is unfeasible. It's very feasible. It's very doable. We could do it tomorrow. Oil and natural gas reserves were discovered in the Golan Heights. Do you think it has something to do with America's recognition of Israel's sovereignty in the territory? I mean, it might be, but I think that US's recognition of Israel's right to basically any land that belongs to Palestinian people is a pretty they have a pretty decent track record of that. Let's see. Yo, it's Simba. How do you feel about a coordinated default on housing and college loans as a means of protesting? Good, bad, nuance? If you could get a critical mass of people to default on their loans, man, you are one brave organizer. Getting a whole bunch of people to like tank their credit scores in our day and age is it's an ask. Golden Heights was Syrian land, I thought. Oh well. My bad. Alrighty. What's next? You're against prisons. What would you do if you were called for jury duty? I'd probably go and try to say something dumb so that they would disqualify me. All right. I just finished the Fatherland movie a few days ago. What do you think of it compared to The Man in the High Castle? Maybe I'm unfair to The Man in the High Castle. Maybe I need to give it another read. I've heard too many people say that it's really, really good, that I haven't been reading it right, and so maybe I should give it another try. But I always thought that Fatherland, even though like it's considered a less good book than Man in the High Castle, as far as like World War II alternate history, what if the Nazis won type things, Fatherland tells a story, while like, you know, Man in the High Castle's like a lot of what's his face? It's very much like his other books with like Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep and stuff, where it's very cerebral, kind of hazy, drug-inducey, like you just are kind of like, what the hell's going on half the time? And that you kind of have to read like the entire body of work to really get where he's getting at. And it's like, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about The Man in the High Castle. I feel like my plot sensibilities, which I feel like are not everybody's plot sensibilities, are that I think the story didn't go anywhere. I felt like when I was reading The Man in the High Castle, I got over 100 pages in and was like, I literally don't know who any of these characters are, and I have no idea what anybody's doing. And I'm a third through this book, and I have no idea what the plot of it is yet. And I think this happens a lot in alternate history fiction, where like they get too interested in the alternate history scenario that they're in, and then they forget that it's still supposed to be literature that people want to read, you know? And so that's one thing I would say. Like, you know, if you're going to write alternate history, like, to know that it's a genre of fiction. It's a story. It's not an elaborate setting. This is my kind of issue with, like, Harry Turtledove novels. It's like the story has to be about characters that do your story has to be about a character that wants something and overcomes challenges to get it. It has to have a story. Like, setting is great. It also has to have characters and a plot. Wow, still on, you trooper. I know. These evenings really take a lot out of me. Do you see when I thought the Fatherland author was a snob? Yeah, I have heard that Fatherland's author is kind of shitty and was like pro-Brexit and stuff, so maybe not. But the reason I like Fatherland is just because it took the alternate history scenario and made it part of the story, but didn't make it the whole story. So for anybody who hasn't seen it, I think I've talked about Fatherland a couple times. But Fatherland is a novel about an alternate history in which the Germans won World War II. It's a story that's happened. So, like, basically, like, the UK is still independent, but majority of Europe has become part of this, like, fascist-led European Union. Okay, that's all they need to say. That's all they say about World War II. They don't talk about maps. They don't go into long, excruciating detail about how everything's different. That's just the setup. All right, cool. Main character, BBC reporter, goes to Germany for Hitler's 80th birthday. And it takes place in like the 1960s. Goes to Germany to cover as a journalist the celebrations of Hitler's birthday and all the stuff that goes down. And while she's there, she gets a secret message. And basically what it is because the Germans won World War II, they were able to pretty much contain all information about all the genocide they had done. So nobody knew about the Holocaust. Or at least it wasn't public knowledge. So she has this bomb story that is a huge expose on like the genocide that was committed by Germany. And she, the entire novel is her trying to get out of Germany with this information so that she can tell the world. That is a plot of Fatherland. And it's like, that is, see, it has a character, a compelling setting. It uses its alternate history setting to be the MacGuffin for the plot, and then it has a plot. Like, she's American from a New York publication. Okay, I think in the movie she's from the BBC, or in the book she's from the BBC. One of those two. All right. Was Karl of Austria a good boy? I don't know who Karl of Austria is. You may have already addressed this, but how do you feel about the Marxist conception of history? Do you feel like Marx is a bit too strictly into economic determinism? I think that it's a good framework. It's a good starting point. Marxist history is also called historical materialism. And I think that it's a useful tool in the tool belt for understanding the past. But it is definitely, like, I would not use it as the one-size-fits-all describer of all things that happened in the past. But it is a useful theory, like all other theory. All right. All right, what's next? Is it worse when the head of state is also the head of government? I have no idea. I'm not sure. That would be interesting to. I'm not much of a political scientist, so I can't really answer that in a good way. ZK Gerrymander, have you ever been to Manitoba? Yes, I have been in Manitoba this year. Yeah. I've been to Manitoba several times. This year, in late 2018, my grandmother passed away, and her funeral was in Saskatchewan, so we flew to Winnipeg and we drove to Saskatchewan for the funeral. So I was in Winnipeg in January. Most recently, anyway. But, like, I have been to Saskatchewan several times during my childhood, and most of the time we would fly to Winnipeg and drive the rest of the way because they lived, the part of Saskatchewan they lived in was just across the border from the Manitoba border. All right. Yeah, no state. That's a good way of doing it. All right. Suppose everyone was born without sex and we got to choose our gender at puberty. If that was the reality, do you think the gender balance would still remain more or less 50-50? I don't know, to be honest. I don't know if that's a hypothetical that I don't know what people would choose or why they would choose it, or because we don't live in that world. I don't know. This is like why I'm not really good at philosophy. I'm not really good at like, if you get rid of all context and all circumstance, what do you think in this situation? It's like we never live in a situation where it's like that. Where do you think Terry, so where do they think the Jews went? Terry, so in the novel, if I remember correctly, that there was like this large government program that like wrote fake letters and stuff like that. Like there was it was kind of hand wavy, but they had a large government thing to sort of tell the story that all the Jews were sent to like some like far off place in Eastern Europe, like in Ukraine or something like that, and that's where they were living. What they didn't tell them is that they killed them all, and that they had like fake letters and like all sorts of stuff. But I don't exactly remember what the they had a hand wave for it though. What do you think about Buddhist meditation practices borrowed for use by secular Westerners? Meditation is good for the brain. Just because it has religious significance for Buddhists doesn't mean that people can't use it. Meditation is not owned by Buddhists. It's been used by many religions before and since. So it's just a good thing to do for your brain. It's probably why Buddhists picked it up as a practice. All right. Is there an anarchist way of history? Yes. An anarchist analysis of history is, there was this idea like way back in the day that there were 4 basic modes of analyzing history. There was liberal, conservative, anarchist, and Marxist. An anarchist way of studying history is the analysis of power and hierarchies and structures. One example that comes up is David Graeber's studies of what were called the Hill people, which from our civilizational focused worldview were treated as like these unfortunate souls that would love to live in civilization, but they were too barbaric or something or other, and they didn't end up living in the central. But what an anarchist historian and David Graeber, who wrote extensively about this kind of stuff, would say is that these hill people lived in the hills precisely to get away from civilization, and that there's this like kind of idea that like there's a narrative throughput of the development of hierarchies that begins with the agricultural revolution, and that anarchist historians will analyze how power worked in the society and how hierarchies push for different things, and it's another good way to do history. I did an anarchist analysis of the Vietnam War for one of my classes, and I got an astonishingly high grade for it for what's it called, for like an undergraduate American history course. And yeah, you watch the first couple episodes. There's a couple episodes anyway of the season 2 of Crash Course World History that does talk about anarchist history. That is pretty good. It's pretty fair for, you know, a non-anarchist. Okay. I like the book, which thing? Okay. Thoughts on Sargon, the UKIP candidate? Is he actually running for office? That's so sad. Sargon is a doofus, and as a doofus, I hope he doesn't. He's not going to win. He sucks. He's bad. Is that what you want me to hear? Sargon is bad, and it is bad that he is running for office, and that I hope he doesn't win. I don't know what more you wanted. If I ever wrote a Star Trek style utopian future thing, that's how I'd make gender and sex work in it. All right. Let's see how it goes. I'd be interested to see. It'd be interesting. It would be interesting to just, because we live in a society where gender and sex are such a thing where you are a thing that's imposed on you, and it's a thing that you naturally gravitate towards, and those can be at odds. It can be complicated and hard. If sex and gender were framed as a choice, and if you started from nothing and you could choose whatever you wanted, I'd be very curious as to like what kinds of thoughts go into something like that. What kind of cultural what kind of culture does that make? It's an interesting science fiction question. It's the perfect kind of question about why science fiction is great, because science fiction is about exploring humanity. Because like I think that writing about something like that would talk a lot about how our culture approaches things like sex and gender. I think that'd be really cool. All right. What was the deal with Franco? James Franco? Or like Francisco Franco, who was like the fascist dictator of Spain? There's a lot of Francos out there. James Franco is a strange actor who makes weird movies. And he did 127 Hours and also some other things. I think he was in a Spider-Man. All right. With that awesome James Franco thing, I think we are going to wind down for the night. Yeah. Why did Cuba trade with Franco with Spain? I don't know. Ask Fidel Castro. Probably desperation because they had very few people who would trade with them at all. Anyways. The sun has gone to bed and so must I. Yeah, it's time for me to go to sleep. I can already feel myself sundowning. So friends, this has been a great stream. Whew. Any more life events? Hopefully not soon. I'm going on a trip. I'm going on a trip in a couple weeks. I'm excited for that. All right. You guys have an amazing night. This has been a great stream. For you guys who come in on Mondays, I'll see you guys on Monday. Otherwise, there's going to be a quick step next Monday. And I'll see you whenever it's the next stream. Just remember, you come in anytime. Monday from 1 to 2 Eastern or Tuesday from 7 to 10 Eastern. Come and say hello again. You guys were great. And you have an amazing night. And you guys are so great. You guys are all being all kind. Take care.